Okay, here's another video on the composition that I'm working on right now. I think this is week 4 into it. Just been chipping away at it in my own time, just in between work, things like that. But it's coming along, it's getting there. We're getting a bit more detailed now. So this stage is basically about establishing the tonal relationships. It's like introducing the first layer of tone. And you can see that the figures, I mean, this guy still needs to be finished down here, but you know, you can leave the line work a bit more vague in some places as you move on to this stage. But yeah, this stage is all about introducing the base layer of tones. So you'll notice that there's a very light shading on some of the darker values. And I mean, there's two ways you could approach this. So one way is to draw all of the shadow shapes and all of the shading on the figures, all the cast shadows, and shade those in first. Or you could approach it by establishing the local values and separating the darks from the lights. So the local values are basically the tone of a particular object, okay? So it's basically the color of something. So for example, if you had two balls and one ball was blue and the other ball was yellow, then the lighter ball, the yellow ball would have a much brighter local value than the blue ball, right? So that's what local value is. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. So I'm establishing basically any tones that are meant to be dark. I shade over them very lightly, like the shields, the tunic, the leather straps, and anything that has a bright local value, like the armor, like the reflections of the armor and things like that, they will be left blank. And it's done very, very lightly, as you can see. These two guys in the middle, I'm just kind of in the middle of rendering those. So I've moved on to the stage after this one already. But if you have a look here, so like the Centurion has a pretty dark outfit compared to the standard legionaries. So his whole uniform is basically a dark local value. He's got like a white tunic here, and these are a reflective surface, these shin pads right here, but his sandals are dark, right? So that's how I approach it. I like to approach by establishing the local values first, and then I can get those shadow shapes in there later. But I think for a piece like this, I would prefer to put the local values in, and then that way I think I can build a stronger composition that way. Especially when it comes to like toning in the horses. So this horse has been lightly shaded. I think I'm going to make this like maybe like a brown horse, or maybe like a dark local value. I think the horse here is going to be like a white horse, just to sort of contrast with his dark armor and the dark armor of the Centurion. He's also got like a shield behind him. So I think if I make this horse white, that would be a bit better compositionally. So that's why I like to approach it this way, because it's really just organizing your lights and darks in a way that's visually appealing. And then I can just go ahead and put the shadows in later. The shadows, I just kind of draw them a bit more freeform for figures. I just focus on shadow shapes that looks good. You can see on this figure in the foreground here, I've already cast his shadow on the ground, just loosely sketching it in. Like I've made a couple of educated estimates, but then the rest of the shape I just kind of sketch in freely. And I've done that with this figure, and I'm going to do it with this figure in the foreground, and that's basically it. I've done it with the Centurion over here. So yeah, I will construct the shadow shapes as well while I'm in this stage. But yeah, mostly just separating the bright armor from the dark armor and building the composition that way, because that's probably going to be even more important than the shadow shapes, truth be told. But anyway, there's a little glimpse on how it's progressing. So yeah, this is probably about 3.5 weeks into this drawing, so it's coming along. I wish I could make a bit more time for it, but you know, I got to work, I got bills to pay and all the rest of it, so yeah, I just do this in my spare time. But it's coming along. Yeah, it's definitely getting there.